Our next guest is a writer and editor in Chicago who has edited books for the Chicago Cultural Center, the Chicago Center for Literature and Photography, and magazines for the Public Media Institute. His work has been published in Mash Tun, Proximity, The Lumpen Times, Spike, 3 AM, and Gaper's Block. His book, Hiroshima Nagasaki, an illustrated history anthology and guide from Odyssey Publications, came out last year, and he just finished an intensive design course at the Startup Institute. He's looking for a more stable gig. Please welcome Robert O'Connor.
Yes, and I have a handful of copies of the book back there for $20 cash, and if you buy it, I promise to sign it. This is something that is not from the book. It is the story of the craziest thing I have ever done, and if you've known me for a while, you've known that I've done some crazy things in my time. It is audition day at the Oberlin Conservatory of Music. It's a dull, early December day. The prospective students are all dressed in their suits, their neatly combed hair, and well-done ties. All morning, the piano faculty has seen them come in to one of their classrooms, sit at the Steinway Grand, and play their repertoire in the hopes of being taught by them. At about 10:30 that morning, it is my turn. My name is called, and I walk into the classroom. The faculty sees me, and I have hat hair. I'm covered in sweat, and I can barely look them in the eye. For one thing, the sun is really, really bright through the sleek window panes of this classroom. What they didn't know, what nobody knew, was the suit I was wearing. I had been wearing it for the previous 2 days, along with a winter coat bulkier than this one. I hadn't slept the previous night or the night before, because I had been traveling to Oberlin by train, by bus, and by walking across 4 states, all so I could attend Oberlin and learn from the faculty, specifically from one of the piano teachers who was not in the room at the time. I had had a lesson with her the previous August. I had gone to the Oberlin Piano Festival and taken a lesson with Hewon Song. I hadn't heard of her before, but one of the fellow attendees suggested I take a lesson with her, and I did. And the lesson was so good that I decided then that I would audition a second time to Oberlin and be a student with her. A few weeks later, I started as a freshman at the University of Wisconsin-Eau Claire, but I had already made up my mind that I would leave. I have no complaints about or criticisms of Eau Claire. It's a fine school, and everyone I met there was great, but I just didn't want to be there. And I started planning for these December auditions right away, and I planned meticulously how I would get there. I would take a taxi from my dorm room to the local Greyhound station, take a Greyhound station from Eau Claire, a Greyhound bus from Eau Claire to Tomah, Wisconsin, where I would get on an Amtrak to Chicago, get on another train to Elyria, Ohio, walk to a shuttle that would take me to Oberlin, have my audition, come back to Elyria, take a train back to Chicago, another train to Tomah, and a Greyhound bus to Eau Claire, and a taxi back to my dorm room. And this whole thing would go from a Friday morning until Sunday evening, and I would only miss one class. It sounded simple enough, but there were a few things that complicated this trip that I didn't anticipate. First of all, I still have this irrational fear that I will sleep through my alarms. So sometimes, if I have to do things really early in the morning, like catch an early bus, I will stay awake throughout the entire night. So when this whole thing started, I was on no sleep. Something else I didn't account for was I couldn't relax. The minute I would doze off, I would have to stay awake in anticipation of the next train or the next bus. So, Oberlin has these really nice seats in their hallways, and I would lie down on them going, "Oh, you're so comfortable all of a sudden," only to jump up and force myself to keep moving because there was somewhere else I needed to go. Now, this audition, I played my pieces on request, but I don't remember a whole lot about what happened in the audition. The only piece I remember doing was Jadot by Maurice Ravel. The audition went for 10 minutes, and at the end, the head of the department said, "Thanks for coming. We'll let you know of our decision." And I stumbled out, barely looking at the faculty or saying any words of thanks. I was 19 when this happened, so I didn't know what getting drunk or stoned was yet, and I'm pretty sure to everyone else that's what I looked like. When this whole thing was over, the mom of one of my fellow prospective students drove me to a nearby mall, and this mall also had benches, but I couldn't sleep on those because mall security would assume I was homeless, and I didn't want to split hairs with them about whether I was homeless. Anyway, so I waited in this mall for about 9 hours, which really raises a lot of suspicious questions. And when that was closed, I took a short walk, and by short walk I mean 2 miles to the Amtrak station. Now, if you've ever gotten off of an Amtrak train in Ohio, specifically Elyria, you would know that the trains only show up twice a day, once at 2 a.m. and once at 3 a.m. in either direction. So I had to wait until 3 a.m. for this train, which took me back to Chicago. I waited a little more at Union Station, took another train back to Toma, walked to the Greyhound stop, took a bus to Eau Claire, and spent the last few dollars I had on a taxi back home, where I slept a lot. To sum up, this trip lasted about 64 hours. I slept for, I'm not quite sure, maybe about 5 or 6 of them. I wore one suit for the entire trip. I can only imagine what I smelled like coming back. It cost me all of the money I had, about $400, and somehow I didn't run out of money. I only ran out of money at the very end, and ultimately I did not pass the auditions. What a surprise. Also, this entire trip was made with no cell phone or credit card, and I didn't tell anybody I was going to do this beforehand. Somehow I didn't run out of money, get killed, or was otherwise abducted. Success? Yeah, I felt like I had failed, but I realize now that I had done it, and even if I didn't get what I wanted, I had succeeded. An honest question for you in HR or admissions or people that have to bring on new people. If someone came into your office and told you that they had traveled off across 4 states on no sleep just to meet with you because they want to work for your company, what would you do? You can tell me your answer afterwards. I ended up telling my parents about all of this, and instead of reacting the way I thought they would, with disappointment and discouragement, they were surprised and impressed with what I had done, if disappointed I hadn't told them beforehand. And my next lesson with Hewan Song was at the next piano festival the following August. I walked in, played a little for her, and her first comment was, "I'm so proud of you. You've grown so much in the past year." And she didn't know how right she was.